What's going on, beautiful people? We are back again with another Mental Max Out podcast. I'm your host, Akeem Robinson. And for those of you joining us for the first time, thanks for checking it out. Mental Max Out is all about helping people change their perspectives, think differently, and get out of the hole. If you're back again, I celebrate your willingness to continue growing and challenging your mind. Remember, if you like what you hear today, make sure you hit that subscribe button or whatever platform you're listening from. Share it with a friend and follow us on social media at Mental Max Out Podcast. It's the end of that long work day. You're hungry and you want something to eat. So you open up the microwave and you've put your favorite meal in there. And little did you know, you forgot to take the foil off. Or you had a pot on the stove and it starts bubbling over and things start getting a little crazy. Next thing you know, you've either got the smoke alarm going off and you've ruined that meal that you've been thinking about all day. Does that sound a little familiar? That fire alarm sound going off in your head because you got smoke all over in the house? Allison was trying to put something in the stove and it just got a little hectic. Next thing you know, we had smoke alarms going everywhere. And she looked me in the eye and she said, nothing has been going the way I've planned it at all. This day has been terrible. Can I tell you how frustrating that is to feel like nothing is going your way? So today we're going to dive into the art of turning those moments where the smoke alarm goes crazy, we have those burnt moments in our life, and turn them into victory. By just transforming how we look at setbacks into things that can actually propel us to growth and success. The first thing that we have to do and be okay with is managing setbacks with clarity and resilience. First, let's talk about the fact that when we look at something that's a burnt moment, like from that analogy, those moments suck. We hate those times in our lives because we don't like to fail. But guess what? That happens a lot. Failure in a career, a failed project, a personal disappointment. We have to recognize that those things are going to happen to us. And we have to look at those moments and accept them. The biggest mistake that we can do is ignoring them as if they won't happen again, or just thinking they're going to go away. Ignoring something does not resolve the situation. So let's start by talking about how do we take a step back? When we focus, put our attention on challenges, our initial reaction sometimes is we can get a little emotional. We can get a little overwhelmed, especially if it's something brand new that we've never done before. It is important to give ourselves that time to step back just to gain perspective. When we can step back, we can pause, allowing ourselves a moment to detach from that feeling, that situation that felt a little crazy and almost overwhelming for us in the first place. This can prevent that quick decision-making process and almost makes us feel like we're rushing to get to the conclusion. By just taking a break, sometimes we can approach the problem with a whole different mindset and almost, in a lot of situations, clear up our thoughts. When we can take a break sometimes and take a step back, we can look at it objectively. When we can reflect and look at that situation from a neutral standpoint, that means we're putting aside our own personal biases, how we think it should go. And now we actually have a deeper sense of what we're looking at. Practicing mindfulness, engage in the exercise of just taking deep breaths in a situation that can feel overwhelming. Calming your perspective. Taking that break, sometimes a short break is all we need. Removing yourself from the situation sometimes can give you a whole new way to approach it, a better way to look at the situation, and cannot make you feel overwhelmed. And then there's just a lot of times we're writing it down, journaling our thoughts. When we write things down, we can understand where we're coming from. What was the process that got us there? We can start to write what we would like to do in the future. Once you're able to take a step back, identifying the root cause is crucial for addressing issues in our lives. In a lot of situations, when we have moments where we're overwhelmed or things don't go our way, it's because we don't want to analyze the situation. So because of that, we find ourselves repeating the same things over and over. If we can analyze this situation, we can reflect on what led to that in the first place. Was it a lack of preparation? Was it something external that we were dealing with? Or was it just a miscommunication of what we needed to get done with our significant other, our colleague, or our family? Because once we understand the cause, we can now see if there's any identifying patterns. Look for anything that keeps recurring, because if it keeps recurring, that means it's a pattern, whether it's good or bad. And sometimes when we get overwhelmed, it's because we keep doing repeatable patterns that are affecting us, and they keep contributing to the problem. So here are some things you can do today that can make you start to analyze the cause. Start by asking yourself the right questions. What went wrong? Why did it happen? How can I fix it? By asking yourself these questions, you can now start to have a deeper internal conversation. You can also start to seek feedback from an outside perspective. Family members, colleagues, mentors, they can give us insight into things that we weren't even looking at in the first place. And then on top of all that, we can evaluate what actions we put into place that contributed to that decision, that added to that feeling that we're feeling right now. After understanding the cause, it's important to accept the situation and move on. Holding on to mistakes or dwelling on what went wrong only puts us in a situation where we're now stagnant. We're not putting any movement behind anything. The next thing we have to understand is acceptance is a key factor in being able to move on, and it also builds up your resiliency. So when we look at acceptance and moving on, acknowledge your feelings. I feel like today we get so caught up in we have to keep going, but we have to acknowledge how we feel in this present moment. Is it normal to feel disappointed or frustrated? Yes, it is. But sometimes it's important to recognize these feelings and not let them control you. We need to learn from these experiences. Use these insights that we've gained of failing, being overwhelmed, being anxious, and use them for our own benefit, so we don't have to go through the same situation over and over. Because now that we can accept it and move on, we can now focus on the future. Shifting your focus from what went wrong to what you can do next, by setting up new goals to make a new plan to move forward. So here's some practical steps you can use helping you start to move forward. Forgive yourself. I'm going to say that one more time. Forgive yourself. Accept that mistakes are a part of learning. And it's a process that forgives yourself of errors. We are human. Create a plan that addresses any issues and implement changes based on what you've learned. And most importantly, stay positive. Maintain a positive attitude and remind yourself that setbacks are opportunities for growth and improvement. Managing setbacks effectively involves you taking a step back, understanding the root cause of your issue, then accepting it and moving on. By allowing these steps to turn into moments that we can look at challenges and now start to progress and move forward. Remember, it's okay to feel disappointed, but dwelling on it won't help. Acknowledge it, understand it, then you have the ability to accept it and move forward. Now I get it, I understand. You may be thinking to yourself, well, yes, I get overwhelmed. Yes, these are things that I may be anxious or I have things that don't go my way, but that situation isn't really me. That can also be because the power of paying attention to the little things. It is often said the difference between something good and something great is the attention to detail. That sometimes is the key to reasons why we're not successful. Take, for example, the architect who was granted the opportunity to design one of the greatest libraries ever. This architect was so excited to design this library that he wanted shelves to be amazing. He wanted the whole thing to look great. And guess what? He did that. But in the final piece of him doing that, when it was time to put the books on the shelves, he didn't account for the weight of the books. So here's this great building meant for books, but he forgot to account for the books. Life is like that sometimes. We look at things and we can overlook the small things. And in doing that, those can lead to significant mistakes that we will now have to suffer through because we forgot the smallest of details. So let's break down how small things can cause big mistakes and the importance of paying attention to those things, like why we take these things for granted and the value of setting intentional reminders for events and milestones. The little things can cause big mistakes. We often get so caught up in the big picture, we forget the small details. But it's these little things that can sometimes trip us up the most. Think about it like this. You're trying to cook your favorite meal, and you've probably done it 100 times. But in doing this meal that you've cooked 100 times, you forgot to add a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of flavor here and there. And guess what? That threw the whole meal off. Because even though it's something you cook and something you know like the back of your hand, the small details make the biggest difference. That same analogy can be taken into our personal and professional lives. Overlooking small details can lead to significant mistakes in our work. Whether it's forgetting a detail on a project or just forgetting a minor thing in a relationship, like an important day, or how you say I love you to a significant other. You might say it before you leave, and one day you just didn't say it. Now guess what? The whole day is now ruined in that other person's mind because they're thinking, what happened? What didn't I say? What's on their mind? And now it leads to potentially an argument, disagreements, deeper conversations that probably needed to be had a long time ago. So we need to be able to pay attention to the little things that we take for granted. We often look at the boring, the everyday aspects of our lives, and we just overlook them and take them for granted. But these are the very things that we need in order for us to keep the peace in our lives. In order for us to continue to move forward in happiness in our lives, these things cannot be taken for granted. For example, a daily routine. We might overlook the importance of staying organized, keeping schedules on track, or just maintaining health. But guess what? When we do that, it starts to create a ripple effect towards our family. It starts affecting others around us because something that was so important to us now have pushed it to the side. By paying closer attention to these things, these minor aspects in our lives, we can improve our overall efficiency and well-being. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. How can we improve ourselves? Because if we can do that and recognize every little action that contributes to the bigger picture, it helps us. So instead of looking at the big picture, look at the small corner first. Because looking at the small corner can actually give you more insight into what the picture is going to be. So how do we go about doing that? Just setting intentional reminders. Setting up a reminder for yourself can be one of the simplest ways to start to stay on track. Start to be more mindful of what we're doing. One of the most meaningful ways to build and maintain strong relationships is by remembering and acknowledging important events and milestones in our lives. Think about how special you feel when somebody remembers your birthday or congratulates you on a personal achievement. It shows they care, right? But it also makes you feel good. Take that same thought process in how our days are working, how we look at other people. One cool thing LinkedIn and other little sites do is they remind us all the time, it's Johnny's birthday. Jack is now at this stage in their career at this company. Take a minute out of your day and congratulate that person. It shows that you care and you're paying attention, but it also fills your cup because you're now giving to someone else. Intentional reminders helps us now stay on track for important events in other people's lives, like our families, our friends. And now it shows us that we value what's going on in your life. We appreciate what's happening to you. And when we do that, it strengthens our relationships. It builds a better community around us because now other people know you're paying attention and they might give it back to you. It helps you ensure that you're not overlooking the small things. Did you kiss your wife today? Did you hold hands and say, I love you? Did you read one page in the story for your children today? Take a few moments each day to reflect on the things that are going on. Because in those situations, we can take a lot of things for granted. So whether it's a routine or a personal habit, give it attention it deserves. And number 3, using tools like calendars and reminders and just little daily checklists, stay on track for the things that we start to take for granted. By focusing on little moments, we can prevent significant mistakes, appreciate the everyday aspect of our lives, and build stronger and more meaningful relationships. Remember, it's the small details that we often take for granted which can lead to the biggest mistakes in our lives. So what if you're one of those type of people where, yes, I've felt setbacks. Yes, things have happened to me, but things are still going pretty good for me. But I still want to be better and I want to be more prepared. Then we need to start focusing on prioritizing what matters and building on that success. In our everyday busy lives, we can get overwhelmed. And sometimes it can be this responsibility mixed in with this task and having to get it all done. But not everything is equally important. To achieve a meaningful and progressive way of looking at it, we need to prioritize what truly matters. Identify your core principles, your core priorities. What are the most important goals or values in your life? Take a second and think about that. What are those things? Now that we can do that, we can focus. It could be things as your family, your health, or your personal growth. Set clear goals. Write down your main goals and break them into smaller ones that are more manageable. You can prioritize all these things by coming up with what's important, what's my day-to-day, what do I need to accomplish by the end of the week. Break down the categories that make sense for you. Another thing you can do is use the 80-20 rule. Focusing 20% on activities that will give you 80% results. Yes, focus 20%. What do I need that will give me 80% results? Because again, we're not trying to look at the whole picture. We're trying to break it down smaller. This will help you concentrate on the high impact tasks, the things that you need to get done and how important and quickly they need to be accomplished. Another thing you can do is creating a schedule. By creating a schedule, you can plan your day around your top priorities, the things that need to be done for you to be at your best. Not only does that give your brain peace of mind, it now starts to put people in your life to say, I need this space. I need this time. And they start to respect that. So let's talk about distractions and avoiding negative people. Like I was talking about, when we get overwhelmed and we get anxious, sometimes it's who we're surrounding ourselves with. Negative people can drain your energy. They can distract you from your goals. How do I know if I'm around a negative person? Because they're not supporting any of your ideas, or they only want you around them to contribute to talking down about things, breaking things down, and not building anything up. It's important to recognize that now you step back away from them and reduce the impact they're putting on you. I know, I get it. You're probably saying to yourself, well, what if that impact is in the house? So if that impact is in the house, or that impact is in the work, and I really can't get away from them, now what do? You can set boundaries. By establishing a clear boundary, it allows you the time and energy you need to protect yourself. For example, hey, I love talking to you, but when we talk about this situation, I feel really uncomfortable. And I don't want to talk about that. Or when we're talking about this situation, I'm really not ready for that conversation. So can we talk about something else? By being polite and firm in your beliefs, you tell people where you stand on the situation. And guess what? It's holding up a mirror to those negative people to say, if this is important to you, you're going to make a change. Something else you can do is surround yourself with positivity. Seek out positive, supportive people. These people uplift you. They support your ideas. They might tell you it's a bad idea, but they're willing to give you suggestions. Those people will help you build a network within your own friends or people at work that you can now start to go to and share like-minded goals and dreams. It starts building you instead of tearing you down. Practice self-care. Practicing self-care is not a moment of selfishness. Taking care of yourself is a way to strengthen your emotional well-being and continually clean out the mental clutter you might be dealing with. One thing I love to stress to people is you need more than one. As we go through these crazy times in our lives, we can't just have one thing that's our go-to of practicing self-care. You need multiple avenues, some that are free, some that go in and it might take 10 minutes or an hour. You need a bank of different things you can go to that will fill your cup because of the situation you might be in at that moment. So finally, let's talk about keeping what works and building on top of that. So many people I talk to, the number one reason why they don't experience success is because they launched A and A was great. But now they're like, okay, I want to now do B. No, take some of A with you to B, because now you can use it to build each other. Identifying the strategies and habits that helped you achieve positive results can continue to refine and build you in the first place. If you just try to build something from the ground up every single time, it can lead to frustrations. It can cause you to feel like you're not doing enough. So by adding to what already works, you can make it better the next time instead of starting all the way over. Reflect on success. Regularly checking on your achievements and identifying what worked, that is a way you can start to build your list of saying, I did A, B, and C, and all these things worked, and the rest did not. So now in the new project, I'm going to bring A, B, and C with me as my new form of insight. We have to stay flexible. A lot of things that we're trying to do is going to take more than once. Success is not a one-time thing. I'm telling you today that if you think you're going to start a new project and it's going to be successful the first time, it's going to be tough. So you have to be flexible. Be open to being adaptable and improving your methods. Don't stop, but change and adjust. By constantly seeking ways to improve and innovate, you the opportunity to now grow. Another thing that you can do is celebrate your milestones. By celebrating your milestones, you put yourself in a situation where you can say, I did it. I climbed this mountain. So many people that I consult and talk to, when they climb one mountain, they're ready to start the next. And I have to tell them, no, stop for a second and acknowledge how far you've come. Look at what you've done in this amount of time. And believe it or not, the first thing I love to congratulate people on are birthdays, because they're huge. And for some reason, as we get older, we don't like to celebrate it. We're just like, oh, okay, sure, let me move on to the next one. But it is not like that. If you made it to a birthday, I'm not saying you need to have this huge Las Vegas bash. No offense to people if you're listening in Las Vegas. But come on, man, you need to be able to say, wow, look at what I've done. Look at the steps that I've taken to make it to this point. Birthdays just should not be looked at ready to move on to the next thing. By rewarding yourself for reaching new milestones, that gets you motivated. And it encourages you to continue to grow, to go for those things. By grabbing what matters, avoiding distractions of negative people, and continually building yourself in a way that helps you, you now put in a mindset where you're now more focused, you're positive, and you're productive in moving in a direction where setbacks no longer hold you. The disappointment doesn't keep you in the bed for weeks. You can now look these moments in the eye and say, okay, that's not what I've planned for. That's not what I was ready for, but I'm okay. And I'm going to go, and we're going to move forward. Remember that prioritizing what's important, minimizing negative influences, and building on your success are key strategies for transforming your life from being that disaster that we talked about in the beginning to being a victory that inspires others. Person that now when they walk in the room, people are asking you, how did you do it? Because we're becoming a living transformation. Stay connected to who you're becoming and continue to explore that person. Remember, I'm not trying to get you to think like me, but I'm going to work really hard to get you to think differently. Thank you.